Okay, building on the previous two tutorials, we're going to start exploring edit mode and how we can edit and manipulate objects in a more complicated fashion. So first up, I'm going to get rid of the cube with the X key, which is the keyboard shortcut for delete, and that is now gone. Whoops, for some reason all the way over here. Okay, so now I need to add, and in this case I'm going to be adding some text. This will allow me to edit the text, and I can then go inside the text and manipulate it. Going up to the the mode menu, I'm going to change it from object to edit mode, and Star Wars blah blah blah. The previous version of this, I had it all laid out in the keyboard buffer so I could just copy and paste it straight in, but in this case not so much. So switching out of edit mode, I have a piece of text, blart. Okay, and so I now need to actually manipulate that text so it actually becomes a little more formatting and that sort of stuff. So I'm going to go to the text properties and start modifying that. So down here in paragraph alignment, I'm going to change that to centered. So it looks centered. I'm going to add some geometry to that. So if we look from the side so you can see me add the geometry, we can add some extrude depth, making it thicker. And yeah, that'll do. And then we can add some bevel depth, which gives it a smoother edge. Now the resolution is the number of times it bevels things. So initially, if we go to 0, there's 1 cut across that surface. If we go to 1, there should be 2, and so on and so forth until the edges get smoother and smoother. And that's pretty much everything. The next bit we need to do is actually modify the material on this text. Now that's this little spherical icon with the black and white squares on it. And we have nothing in our material stack. So we're going to add something and click new for a new material. It pre-generates with what they call the principal shader. And that gives us a lot of basic colors and stuff. And there's a lot of properties in here. I'm only going to touch on some of the basics, such as the base color. Now, as you notice, I've changed the base color, but there's no corresponding change on here. That's because the actual render mode, or the viewport shading mode, I should say, is set up here. So we can have wireframe, which is just the outlines. We can have, I think, solid mode, slightly shaded, or dev look mode, and then fully rendered mode. This can also be reached with Z on the keyboard, and you can see the options here. So moving back to, we'll keep it in rendered mode. Alright, so this gives us finally what it will look like. We have subsurfacing, which is great for skin, but I'm not going to touch it. We have metallic to get a bit of sheen off that surface. Roughness is how smooth that surface is, so 0 is completely smooth and 1 is completely rough. And with any of these values, there's a couple of ways you can manipulate them. You can click and hold anywhere on the bar and slide back and forth. You can click in the box and type in a number. And the little dot on the end gives you additional properties that we're not going to touch on because it gets into adding a different node to that. And it's not worth it in this case at the moment. The other one I want to touch on is the emission. So I'm going to add an emission color, and this is the standard dialog for selecting colors. So you would have seen me do it earlier, but there's a slider on the side, which gives us from black to white. It defaults to white in the center. So if you're off the side here and go, oh, I hate that color, I want actually something in the center, you can just slide this to black, slide off it, and then go back, and then it will be centered. So since this is meant to be a Star Wars scroll, I'll just add that color, and we are done. The last thing I should do is probably reposition the camera. Now, if I want some precision about where I'm putting this camera, I can go to this little box, which is the object menu, and it gives its precise location in X, Y, and Z planes or coordinates, and it's the rotation, and I can go through and zero those out. These are also shown in this top thing here, the item. This is called the N panel. You can press N to reveal it or hide it. And so in these cases, I can 0 tab, 0 tab, 0 tab, 0 tab, 0 tab, 0 tab, and it places it completely in the center. Now for the scale, it should be 111 because that's the thing, and the rotation mode, other tutorials can show you how to do that. So I want to move this up in the X, Z direction, so I'm just going to raise this up, say let's go 9 high. I want to rotate that, and because this is cut through by the red line here at the top, I will imagine it's rotating just in that, and I'm going to hit that at around, I think, 75 degrees. Not too much. Let's go 65. Yeah, that should do. And then I'm going to slide it down the other way, so that it will catch that piece of text. So we'll go -7. Looking through the camera again, I see nothing because my text is below it. So first thing I'm going to do is lock in a keyframe. So selecting the object, I to insert a location on my text, and then jumping along 100 frames, I'm going to make this disappear into the distance, which is the Y direction. You can see that from the green line there. So grab Y off into the distance and lock that in as location. Now it's 101 frames, so let's finish it on 110. And going back to the start, you'll notice here that this is just below the camera. So what I'm going to do is reposition the camera. I'm just looking through the camera, I'm going to grab it and slide down until I'm just above my text. And then by hitting play, I should see blah, 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 blah. Gets a little blurry in there, but that's fine, because that's just the display mode. And then, as previous exercise, going into the render settings, dropping this way, way, way down, so that it's a small file size, finding somewhere to save it as a video. And this is crawl. And that should set it up quite nicely. The last little piece is to change the background. So this is the world settings, this little icon here, this planet globe with an axis through it. And all I'm going to do is just tweak the color so it fades to black. And that way, when I actually go and render it, it will hopefully work. Obviously, I've cut a couple of frames in too early, so cancelling that. Going back to frame 1, I'm too low, so reposition the camera just up a bit, and then into the render settings, and it should render it properly this time. And hopefully it overwrites the previous version. So the text disappears into the distance as expected. It's taking its little time. It's trying to do it quite nicely. So the whole reason I'm doing small render sizes and short timelines is to basically make these quick and easy to render so you can see it happening as it goes. This is pretty much done, and that's all there is to say about it. So thank you for your time.